I would now like to introduce to you Pat Raimer, who is going to introduce the speakers. Pat is one of many elected officials that are part of this. In fact, the Intermunicipal Energy Planning Committee is comprised of 6 towns, but many other local elected officials. Maryland, I'm just looking at right over there, is one of them. We've had many people all through the day that have been elected officials, and Pat has, made, as he will describe for himself, made the mistake of sort of saying that he would try to help his community and ran for office and was elected, and then has now become part of this huge responsibility that he has taken on, as many of our elected officials have, with courage.
Good evening. My name is Pat Raimer, as Rob told you, and I'm a trustee on the village board in Montfort. I was born and raised between Montfort and Cobb, and I've lived in southwest Wisconsin my entire life. I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your schedules to attend tonight's meeting, and I hope you're able to attend this afternoon's sessions. I understand they were quite informative. I also want to thank the organizers and the sponsors of this event for asking me to give a few opening remarks. The dedication of these civic-minded people in this endeavor is remarkable, and I can't begin to express my gratitude for the unbelievable amount of time and energy that they've put into this issue. I've been asked to give a little background as to how and why I got involved in the issue. Started over a year ago when the Driftless Area Land Conservancy made a presentation to our village board, and it didn't take me long to discover that there appears to be a serious problem with the PSC review process. I've come to believe that this one legislative rule change, which removed the need for cost benefit analysis, has led to a skyrocketing expansion of these grid stabilization projects. ATC, every time I read something from there, it's like the same thing. To justify the projects, it's the stabilization of the grid, more cost-effective transmission of the energy, and promoting the use of renewable energy. We recently inquired on the village board about raising the water rates in Montfort, a little community of 700 people. We take in like $150,000 a year. And as part of, for a full-blown rate increase, we would have to spend $10,000 to $12,000 for an accountant to go through our whole books, our whole accounting system, to evaluate our expenses to see if that increase was needed. In other words, a cost-benefit analysis for this little itty-bitty utility. And yet it's no longer required for a project of this magnitude. And I believe that the panel of speakers that spoke today and tonight can prove that this project doesn't pass the smell test. They've looked at official documents of record from utility company annual reports and ATC's own application, and it just doesn't add up. They just keep repeating the same thing. Our village board first passed the resolution because we didn't really know a lot to begin with, asking for the cost-benefit analysis. And when that didn't come forward, we since got on board with an opposition resolution as well. I then decided to get involved with the Grant County Steering Committee and to try and help get information out to neighbors, and with an end goal of getting Grant County to join the Iowa and Dane County boards to pass an opposition resolution, thereby like the majority of the county boards along this route would be opposed. I've become frustrated over the years, and so the one point over the last few months, and the one thing I've learned that is possibly the biggest obstacle to defeating this line is the amount of apathy and hopelessness that I experience when I talk to people. It's nice to have events like this, and I've been to a lot, and they're informative and everything, but somehow, and I take responsibility to myself, I have not been able to light a fire under people. We need the people to get involved. One representative's aide flat out told us that we're simply being out-lobbied. They're not hearing from anybody. I hear comments all the time that all government officials are the same and they don't care about us and there's nothing we can do about it. But this brings about a dysfunctional government that does not and will not work for us. I hear it over and over again. Very few people that I've talked to at length about this project think it's a good idea, but when I ask them to come to a meeting or write a letter or do anything, they just kind of slink away, and that's the last you hear from them. The nation's founders spoke to this, that an informed and an engaged citizenry was essential to this new government's success. President Obama's acceptance speech in 2008, he touched on this when he recognized all the people that rallied to get him elected the first black president of the United States, and he said that 2 centuries later, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people had not yet perished from the earth. And he got this rounding applause and everything, and he let them all applaud. But then he goes on, if you listen to that speech again, and he tells them that this election was not the end, but the beginning. And he asks that the people cannot go back to the way they were, that he needed help to bring about change, that no one can do anything alone. He asked for a renewed spirit of service, a renewed spirit of sacrifice, where each of us resolved to work hard to achieve a goal. So that is why I became involved in this issue. An old coworker of mine once told me, if you're not part of the solution, then you are the problem. So I got involved to try and bring about change, to make a difference, because as I've quoted before, all politics is local. And yet, in large part, as I said earlier, I have not had much success in that, and I don't know how to do it. But if our elected officials are not hearing directly from their constituents, they have no way of knowing what we are thinking. Meanwhile, special interest groups and those who contribute to their campaigns have their ear. We get the government we deserve. The system is there, but it takes engagement and hard work. Nothing worthwhile is easy. Our representatives have the oversight authority to change this rule back if they changed it in 1998. The resolution is passed by over 130 municipalities, and 2 and hopefully 3 of the counties along this transmission line doesn't send a clear enough message, then we need to be contacting them individually through telephone calls or letters. This line is just one of many complex issues, and we can all get overwhelmed at times by the seemingly insurmountable troubles that face us. The odds of victory can seem small, but if you get involved, we can make a change. You can make a difference, but you got to do the work. I firmly believe that this project is not needed now or in the foreseeable future. We are at that proverbial fork in the road, and I think in just a few short years this will turn out to be even more wasteful than it is today. I recently watched a video, what you see online, beware. But the instructor's name, he's an instructor from Stanford University. His name is Tony Seba, and spelled S-E-B-A. And really I'd like to show you that, but my time's limited. But it's at a World Energy Summit in Oslo, Norway. And he speaks on disruptive technology. And he starts out with how the horse was displaced in a few short years by the automobile, and how the cell phone and computers and this disruptive technology, and how this technology grows slowly at first until the costs come down and the technology improves, and it reaches a point where it explodes and totally displaces obsolete technology. And he believes that this is already happening with solar, and that in 14 years, PV solar panels on rooftops will totally displace the way we are powering our homes in 14 years. At this time, according to him, as the costs come down, it will cost more for utility companies to transmit the power over lines than it will to generate that own energy on your rooftop. So in other words, it doesn't matter if it's coal, natural gas, nuclear, whatever, they'd have to generate it for free. It's simple economics. Unsubsidized, he kept using that word in there. Solar power is going to provide the vast amount of power we consume in the future, and the existing line will be more than enough to transmit the balance of our power needs, and this investment in an obsolete technology will be a big waste of our money. This transmission line, therefore, I think is analogous to the telephone company spending the same amount of money in the 90s on replacing all of their telephone lines. Who has a telephone line? No kid, my kid's age even has one. Most people my age don't have a landline. It's obsolete technology displaced by cell phones. Last thing I'd like to say is that there's some within our group who were deflated a few days ago when they learned that ATC has purchased the 80 acres of land on which they're proposed to build this substation just outside the village of Montfort. And they moved up the application date to April, thinking, oh, they must be pretty confident and they're going to do it. And I would propose that I believe this is simply a ploy, like in a card game, trying to get us to stop, that look how big and powerful we are, and we are going to win. And I think it's a ploy, and I think the moving up of the application date of let's get it in now before this opposition continues to grow. I think they're rattled. Thank you.